Alrighty, so today I wanted to talk to everybody about Gmail accessibility and also email formatting best practices if you're not a Gmail user. So today we're going to talk about just email accessibility best practices in general, and then I wanted to get into two things in Gmail that you may not know how to do or have been alerted to that they even exist. So we'll talk about adding alt text to images in the email body, and then also how to make your signature accessible. So first, let's talk about email best practices. So the first one is to use a concise and descriptive subject line. It's really important in general with email to have a subject line, but make sure that it's not super long, but also kind of gets to the point across. I like to try to, at the beginning of the subject line, have the most important thing. Like if something's canceled, I'll try to put canceled, or if you need a response, response requested, something that is clear so that the person receiving it knows exactly what it's about. And then also if someone's reading it with a screen reader, it's very obvious what's going on with that email. When you are drafting the email, use black or dark gray font. That one just for contrast. Make sure the font size is readable, so that's generally 12-point font or above. One caveat, we know that the normal font for Gmail is 10-point font, and we have a request into Google to see if they will increase the normal font, because I personally think large is too big. It comes through on Outlook as like 18 or 20-point font, but it is the only, actually I should say the smallest accessible font. So that's where we're trying to make some improvements. When you're trying to emphasize text, use bold text. Don't use highlights, italics, or underlined text. Highlights don't have a strong enough contrast with the background, so if someone can't perceive the color yellow or whatever color highlight you're using, it either looks slightly gray or it won't even register. Italics should only be used for if someone is citing like a creative work, so like an article title, book title, painting title, movie title. Creative works get italics. Underlined text should only be used for hyperlink text. I will be the first to admit that I sometimes even click on them. So this is not just some weird obscure rule where I'll just be like, why isn't this link working? And then I realize after about the third or fourth click, oh, because it's not a link. So only use underlined text for hyperlink text. And then if you are using hyperlink text, make sure that you just hyperlink the words. So use a descriptive set of words or a phrase to explain what the link is about, like saying the OIT website, and then hyperlink that words OIT website instead of putting the full URL, because that gets read aloud by the screen reader. And with some of our links can be really, 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 really long. So think about all of the proof point email links we have, where it adds all that URL defense stuff in the beginning. So hyperlink text is the key here. Make sure that if you need to use color, ensure it has an appropriate contrast ratio. This slide deck will be, it's linked in the agenda, and I'll be sending it out after the meeting. So you can click on this link here to get to the contrast checker. Don't use emojis or graphics to replace words. So in text, a lot of us do this all the time. I'm pretty notorious for just thumbs up when I mean okay. I was just like thumbs up. That kind of stuff in email doesn't always translate right. And also emoji have a lot of interpretations, and sometimes the interpretation will go to a place that you were not intending. So just make sure that you're very mindful of when you use your emojis and don't use them to replace words. And then also, if you have a graphic in your email, make sure that it has alt text, and don't forget your email signature. All of us are supposed to have our logos in our email signature for following the state's brand guidelines. So make sure that that has alt text too. Otherwise, it's just sort of some random image that generally just says image or whatever file title it had when you uploaded it into your signature. So let's go through, oh, sorry, Kim, go ahead.
There we go. Now I have it unmuted. Hi, I'm Kim Smith. I'm from hearings in the Department of Revenue, and I just had a question about the email signatures. So we know that we had some branding where we could just go to the intranet and copy and paste everything for the signatures. So does that include the alt text for the image already, or is that something that we have to add separately?
That is a good question. So for the group, this is something that the Department of Revenue's Forms and Graphics development team put together for the department. Ben, Denny, or someone from Forms and Graphics, are you on the call today?
I am, yeah. I think Ben updated it where it does have alt text, and we also have instructions on how to add alt text on our internet site. So, Kimberly, I'll send you a link to it, just so you know. But I believe Ben did update it. That was one of our priorities. So, I'll get with you though, and I'll send it over to you.
And Jenny, can you share that with me too? I think some folks who, if their agency doesn't have it, might like to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I can do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions before we get into alt text in more detail? Yes. So Felicia Michael from CDOT in the chat asked, did I hear that you folks are working with Google to update the normal font size? Yes, you heard correctly. I already put in a ticket with Google. We're still working on getting that worked through their process, but it's already been noted with them that the normal font size is too small and that we've requested it be 12-point font or bigger. So I will keep you posted if I hear more. Right now, it's just been admitted into the process. And you're welcome. And Felicia put awesome thank you in the chat. Does anyone have any other questions?
Hey, Rebecca, this is Christian at the Attorney General's office. I just wanted to circle back to your question on or your comment on the highlights and the italics. Would you mind explaining that one more time? I know on the slide it said do not use highlights or italics. Is that in specific scenarios or is that not at all? I just haven't seen that in the WCAG standard, so I appreciate any insights you can share.
Sure. So I would have to do a quick check to get the actual WCAG standard for you. But basically, it's just to emphasize text. So if there are other avenues where you need to use them, though highlights are a little iffy in general for accessibility. But what I said was highlights do not have a strong enough contrast with the background. And if it has strong enough contrast with the background, sometimes it won't have strong enough contrast with the text. And so they can be just difficult to make accessible in general. And then with italics, those should only be used for the titles of creative works. So that would be like a book, journal article, things like that. It's specific to those sort of things. So it's just in the case if you need to emphasize text, use boldface font only.
Got it. All right. Thank you, Rebecca.
No problem. Any other questions? All righty, let's keep on going. So next we'll talk about Gmail alt text instructions. Oh, Chelsea, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I have my hand raised and then someone else does. It's okay. You may get to this on this slide, and this also could be a matter of personal preference, but one thing that I like in signatures, and I actually try to do it, is some agencies are required to put like the social media links. And for me personally, instead of saying like, you know, OIT Twitter or OIT Facebook or whatever, I actually like to put the social media handle in there so that if people don't want to follow the link, they still have the information as to where to actually find us. But that could be a preference.
Yeah, that one I'd have to check on because generally it just needs to explain what it is. But I mean, that would, I guess, further explain what it is. So let me do some research on that one and get back to the group.
Sure. I'm just giving people options.
All right. And then also I need to making a note here to make get the WCAG specific guideline for bold text. And I'll include both in the follow-up email I send. Alrighty, so moving right along. So next we'll talk about Gmail's alt text and how to add it. It's actually super easy. It's just something that folks may not have noticed came through in a recent update. So basically, you just start the email like normal, click compose, draft your email using the best practices we just talked about. Put the cursor wherever you want to have your image, insert the photo to get the image in there. Once the photo is in there, you can click just a normal click on or select the image, and a menu will appear that shows, small, best fit, original size. And then the last option would be edit alt text. And then you just click on that and type in your alt text. So in this picture, we have just the view from the state capitol dome, and you can see the city and county of Denver's original building across Civic Center Park. So I put a briefer version of that in the alt text, and then when you are satisfied with your alt text in the pop-up that will show, you will just click apply, and it will be added. And actually, John Reed from History Colorado said, can the alt text be done in the settings signature images? At this time, no. So I'll go through how to get alt text into your signature. This is just for if you've embedded an image in the body of the email. I hope, fingers crossed, that that's coming, but I haven't heard anything to that effect definitively. And does anyone have any questions about adding alt text? Okay, great. So just to reiterate, basically you just select the image. Oh, and then Chelsea has a shortcut. So Control-Alt-Y for people who like keyboard shortcuts. So again, that's Control-Alt and the letter Y as in yo-yo to use the shortcuts. I'll be the first to admit my keyboard shortcut knowledge is a work in progress, shall we say, but I still only really know Control-Shift-V, Control-V, and the easy ones. Alrighty. Moving on. So how you get it into the signature. So this one, you can do like what the Department of Revenue does, where they have an actual intranet page, which I did not include that in the process because I wanted to sort of go with a path of least resistance for most people. So for most people who have the Google Suite, you would just open a new Google Doc. In the handout that will accompany this, there is a sample accessible email signature. So you would just copy that, paste it into the blank doc you created, and then obviously change the personal details to match yourself. So your name, title, if you do pronouns, your pronouns, your email, phone number, all that jazz. And then make sure that you've hyperlinked your email and your department's website in the signature. That's stuff that's required with the guidelines. And so on this next slide here, we have a sample signature that you would see in the handout. And so what you want to do in this case is you would right click the image in the signature. And I forgot to mention too, make sure you change the logo out to match your own agency and not use the OIT logo unless you work for OIT. So you would right click on it. And then one of the options on the menu is alt text. You would just add the alt text. And then in this one, I actually do have that. It's also Control-Alt-Y. And so you add the alt text in, click OK. And then you would do this for any other signature images. So to Chelsea's point, if you have social media icons in your signature that you're required to use, you can also do that. And then what you'll do is once you've gotten your signature to a place where you like it, so you've added all the hyperlinks, the alt text, everything, you'll copy your new signature in the Google Doc, and you can either just select it, copy it, or select and do Control-C, and then you'll go over to Gmail's settings, and then go to see all settings, and then you just scroll down until you find signature. You can either update your My Signature or create a new one. Paste what you've copied into that box. Everything that you've added in the Google Doc will carry over, including the alt text. And then you click Save Changes. And then I do like to say, make sure that you test your signature by sending yourself an email, just in case. I've found, like, one time I even misspelled my own first name. So, you know, if you're rushing, it's always good to get one last check it in. And so just send yourself a test email to see how it looks. And that is how you get alt text into signatures right now. And if that changes, I'll be sure to let everybody know. And then a quick final reminder, please and thank you, follow the DPA's IDS guidelines for your signatures. That team puts a lot of time and energy and effort into creating these signatures, and they want it to be uniform so that it's clear that you represent the state. So just please follow their digital guidelines for signatures. And in this slide deck, we have a link to that. And then on the screen here, we have the image of the signatures. So some big call outs is the font is Trebuchet MS. The size is normal. The font, the weight for it is, you know, for your name and title, could be bold. Everything else should be regular, so not bold. The color is black. And they really like those horizontal bars in between your different phone numbers and then your email and web address. And Felicia, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, just wanted to flag for this group. Our BizCom manager reached out to this group because of the use of periods in the phone numbers versus the dashes. And I believe they're going to be making an update to that.
Oh, and then I realized too, it's vertical bars, not horizontal. And I believe they are accessible. The phone number one too, Felicia, we tested, and it looks like it recognizes both the dots and the dashes. Chelsea, did you want to come off the mute and talk about that? Because I know you flagged that originally.
Yeah, I can. This because I was about to type a chat message, but this is faster for me. So the screen readers do read them. So they just read like vertical bar, and if you have multiple, they read vertical bar, vertical bar. I personally don't like them. I think they get in the way, but I have a feeling that's a pretty unpopular opinion with DPA. So.
All right, and I think the reason why they use them is it mirrors the layout of the logo. So it has like the state of Colorado emblem with the sea and the tree, and then the emblem for the agency. Then it has a vertical bar, and then it has the name of the agency. So it usually says Colorado really big, and then it'll say, you know, the department or division name, and then like the program name. And so I think it's just to mirror that format. And then Karen, you have your hand raised.
I do. So as far as the periods, in my former job, we had this same question of periods versus dashes. At the time, the periods weren't reading correctly on all mobile devices. Is that resolved with mobile devices for current mobile devices and all browsers? I'm just wondering.
I don't think so. Maybe.
See, that's what I was worried
but
about,
I don't
because
think so.
I've tested it in the past. It's been a while, but I tested it in a iPhone chat, and the periods didn't convert to a phone number in the iPhone chat. So like you could click on it and it would make the call. So that's why I was curious. The other thing I'm curious about is the P, the F, and the C, because I worry that that's not going to be clear for everyone, especially if somebody doesn't speak English as a first language or they're using translation.
And then do we have anyone from the design team at DPA that could speak to these? Otherwise, I can take this as an action item and
This
reach
is
out.
Adrian Schulte at DPA. I was just chatting in the I was putting up chat in there, but I'll just speak to this. IDS is working on all this. We do not have like branding police. These are guidelines for you. So please feel free to make these common sense modifications using dashes instead of periods. The PFC, I don't even think we have that on our DPA signature blocks. We usually put mobile or home or office, etc. So just whatever makes sense for this group and what makes it most accessible, please do so. And if they're not going to come at you, the IDS team is great and they're super nice. But if they do, you can blame me and we'll take care of it.
Thank you, Adrian. And then Felicia, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, thank you for that, Adrian. I think it would just be really good if you guys could communicate that across all agencies, because we have some of our teams that are very sticklers to what guidance they give from IDS. And so it might be great to kind of just see that in a communication to those folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just need a little bit of patience because the IDS team is also learning as we go. And it is a pretty small team. So they're still trying to get their heads wrapped around a lot of the accessibility stuff. So when they do an overall branding update, they will. But I will bring it up with, we do have an IDS newsletter, and I will bring that up with the person who manages that.
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, we all appreciate that because I'll be honest, I had dashes and the word phone in my email and I was asked to change it. So it's definitely something where people do take these branding guidelines with as though it was the gospel from the Christian Bible. So
I will bring it up for sure.
thank you so much. And then we had a lively conversation going here in the chat. So yes, Danielle, the F is fax, and yes, fax is still used. At the Department of Revenue when I worked there, I was always just being like, why do we have fax machines still? They're always broken. But for a lot of stuff, it's still necessary, especially if you're working with folks in remote areas. Sometimes internet is dodgy. It's really hard to get documents over your phone. If you like, I used to have to drive out to the highway to get high-speed internet when I lived in Weld County. And so, and this was back in the days before a picture of a document was considered acceptable. So it was always a journey. I'd have to drive into town and actually fax things at the local, office fax store that no longer, it's kind of defunct now. I did live in Weld County a while ago. And then I will need to look into the vertical bar being read. I want to say Shelley Nebel from CDPHE asked, having the vertical bar and text next to the logo reads as a table in document headers. Does that create more work for us moving forward, making documents accessible for screen readers? Is that the same for email signatures? Let's see here. Karen, do you know offhand, or should we research?
Yes. It does cause a problem. Actually, that was something that was a challenge in the previous job, where we actually also had to decide that the logo and all the information in the header, because of the way headers generally work, needed to be left aligned so that it wouldn't use tables. I know a lot of people like to do like text on one side, on the left side, and then move the logo to the right, and the only way to really do that is tables. But after some research and experimentation, we discovered it was not accessible